Itinerary wise, we're going to start off a little bit of the theory, a little bit of the heavy stuff, talking about how to use AI safely, talk about best practice, and then we're going to get into actually some of the practical, showing you how to build actual AI tools. I'll be building your tools from scratch in this session today, showing you how to automate specific tasks, and also showcasing a few things like chatbots that we've built here as well, which are also not too difficult to build. And talk to you about the future, how this works, the things you need to be thinking about perhaps, and the things you need to be getting in place. We'll talk a lot about data sets today as well, which sounds, once again, another boring phrase, but I think hoping what I'll help you with is really to give you that picture of sort of where things are going and how you might want to get your HR department organized to be able to take advantage of these opportunities. Even if you're not actively pushing the button on some of this stuff, how you can be planning and preparing just all the information within your department so you're ready to take advantage of it. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. Safe AI, yeah, absolutely. And I think we're going to start with a quick poll. So what I'm really interested in is just understanding from you guys, yeah, where are you on your AI journey at the moment? So 4 options there. I'll share the answers out. It should be quite a simple question. This is you as an individual, not your organization. You might be much more progressed onwards than your organization is, perhaps. But it'll be interesting to sort of get an idea from people, see what your peers are doing. Okay, I'm going to give that 5 seconds more because it shouldn't take long just to choose one of those options. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you for voting on that, guys. Let me just share the results. So yeah, the vast majority of people in those first 2 groups are sort of curious and maybe doing a little bit of experimentation. About a quarter of you, though, are actually actively using AI across HR processes. Let me know in the chat if you want to share, how you're doing that. Is it that it's embedded within your own, HR software or applicant tracking system? Is it that you're building your own tools? And a few of you are just not starting out yet. But I would suggest those not starting out people, you could argue you are AI curious because, well, you're here. And if you're not AI curious after this morning's session, I have failed. So you have to let me know at the end if you are now AI curious. Excellent. Good. Thank you for that, guys. Let me just close that down. So what are we talking about? So it's really important we focus on the safety elements first. So you can step forward into this area with confidence and you can talk around these issues. And it also means you can't be completely, kiboshed by a colleague who says, well, what about bias? Let's take one concept, for example. You need to be able to talk confidently and understand and be able to explain that. Otherwise, either you're not going to have the confidence to go forward, or even worse, you do go forward and maybe, there isn't bias in your project, but if you haven't thought about that and considered it, then you're going to look silly regardless anyway. So if we think about some of the potential sources for bias in AI systems more broadly, then obviously you've got the training data. If you're using like ChatGPT and other sort of large language models, these AI tools, so ChatGPT or Google Gemini or Claude or Perplexity, all of these have been essentially read the internet. That's where they've got an enormous amount of their information. They've also read lots and lots of books and things like this. So, but they've read the internet. Think about that now. There's quite a lot of bias out there on the internet. It's one of the challenges, like when you used to say, and I haven't done this test in a while, but actually one of the earlier versions of ChatGPT, I think it's the 3.5 version, which is, a couple of years ago now, really, but it was the big moment that everyone started going, wow, this is an amazing tool. But someone just went into it and did the old test. I don't know if I'll be able to frame it right, but it's one of them things like the doctor was pregnant, the person was so-and-so, the nurse was so-and-so, how is this possible? And obviously what the reasoning was, the man was a nurse and the doctor was a woman. But ChatGPT was completely scuppered by it and said, oh, this can't happen. This is actually, a man cannot get pregnant. It didn't even contemplate the concept that the nurse could be a man, for example. So it's past those sorts of issues. Those were extreme concerns, extreme obvious bias, but there is still clearly the potential for bias in the training data if you're using ChatGPT. But you'll also see today, when the tools we build, we're going to give it the knowledge training data to use. We're not going to tell it to read the internet to solve our problem. We're going to give it the knowledge. So if there's bias within what we give it, then there's a challenge there, clearly. Yeah. So, for example, if we give it if we let it read our ATS and all the decisions that maybe a recruiter who's not particularly mindful about issues around unconscious bias, or if you've had problems with hiring managers and their conscious bias, even potentially, and all of those decisions are held within the ATS, the historical decisions. If we give that as best practice and said, this is what we've made decisions in the past, learn from these decisions and make similar decisions going forward, which people have done, and then you end up with obviously just continuing bias. Now, the problem with bias from an AI system versus a human is we're probably more willing to forgive a human because it feels like, well, but actually the AI system is, it's probably held to a higher level because well, certainly from a media and PR perspective, when this stuff blows up, if you get it wrong with AI, it's a bigger story than it is. A manager was shown to be not particularly friendly in regards to a certain demographic. If the AI system does it, it's much worse. But also, you need to think around how that's going to play out, because the AI will actually tell you this is how I've made the decision. So it's very obvious. Whereas if we're making decisions, we don't even consciously know why we've made some decisions. So the AI is much more black and white. Okay, so other things going on, you've got algorithmic bias. Is the underlying algorithm, without getting too technical, is that flawed in some way? Or the AI systems could reflect the biases of their developers. So that's something to factor in as well. Now, these are not things that you can necessarily get too deep into. They get quite technical. You can't go into the algorithm, but you can run your own process to ensure that that bias could be there. So therefore, how do we check for bias? So there is some elements around GDPR that will help us here as well, but there's also some other aspects around GDPR we need to be mindful of around safe AI as well. So one of the things you can do with an area of concern, you can do a data protection impact assessment, a DPIA. You might not do that. You probably have a data protection officer and you might ask them to run a data protection impact assessment. Or if you were using, I'm going to show you some AI shortlisting and stuff from hireful later. If you're using our system, you might ask us as the vendor, have we run a data protection impact assessment? And we can provide you with that documentation where we've looked at this and analysed it and made a decision that we feel that it actually is suitable for the purpose. So typical high-risk activities could be, criminal records checks, automated rejection of applicants, tracking employees' locations, monitoring calls and emails. These are all things that, if AI is getting involved in any of these areas, you have definitely an area of concern. Doesn't mean you can't go there. I think that's important. What I would always balance off, particularly at the start of your AI journey, is think about what is the win, how big is the value you can create, and then what is the risk. Okay. And also a third one would be how likely are you to be able to achieve this, which is obviously a key one. So if you think the perfect scenario would be a high win, you're going to save yourself a lot of admin, a lot of time, low risk, and a high probability that you can build a system or buy in a system that will achieve that output for you. That would be the perfect scenario, but that may not be quite as possible. You might end up with low risk, easy probability to achieve success, and a reasonable amount of admin saved. That might be more viable as a first project, perhaps. Okay, and obviously you've got to be mindful about sharing applicant or employee data with any third parties. Once again, doesn't mean you can't do it. If you're a hireful ATS customer, your applicant data is shared with us. If you're using a HR system, your employee data is shared with that third party. So you can absolutely do these things. You just have to do them right, and you have to make sure that you've checked, the company you're sharing this data with, and do they manage it and hold it in a secure and safe way. Okay, other things going on. If you're still with me on this little tough bit, I did say the first bit is a bit tough. Anonymized data. So One of the good benefits about AI systems is you might be able to feed anonymized data to it rather than, all of your data. If you think there's no specific need for it to have the names of your staff, the addresses of your staff, for example, then great, just feed it the basics. When we do our AI shortlisting for our customers, we've already done anonymization. We did that last year in our system. So we have an anonymized version of the CV and we hold that in the system. So we have the option of sending up the full CV or the anonymized version of the CV to the AI. Bet you can guess which one we send up. It's the anonymized version, because why would we send the full CV? That would seem daft. Even though we've told the AI to focus in on these specific questions, we haven't said bear in mind the person's name or their gender or anything like that, but there's no extra need to complicate things or even offer that as a potential risk factor. Okay, but it is important that staff can appreciate the difference in anonymized and non-anonymized data. So that's something that you might want to do with training with your staff. What is anonymized data? So we look at something like this. We're looking at days absent. You're going to feed this information into the system. Which data would you be comfortable sharing? And this just comes down to that risk factor. Obviously, the data at the very top is not anonymized. You've got people's names there. The second two sets of data have people's payroll numbers, which is a good way of anonymizing something, for example, or their employee number. But the other one also has their postcode as well. So you could still, if the AI had access to other, another data set that included addresses for another project or something, it was able to use that, it might be able to know these people. But it's not a huge risk in this example, but it's important to say that that data is not technically anonymized, the one at the bottom there, because you might be able to work out who that person is in due course. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So for example, if you build a report and let that report out to all your staff and to say, so they could see like the absence rates of, departments and, but if they could actually drill into the data and click into it, like so you can on some reports, and they could see that someone in customer support who lives in NN8 9FR, oh, that's Rushton. Oh, that must be Dawn. Oh, she's had that much days absent. You know what I mean? That's when it's not anonymized as an example. Whereas if you've got the locations more broadly, then I think you'd be safer. Okay. Oh, just stay with me on this legal bit. So we will get to the fun stuff. I like playing with AI, not reading about bias and GDPR. But I know a lot about this area because it's not the area that interests me. It's the area that I have to know about to be, credible internally here for my organization because we're on this journey as well, just like you. So gaining consent is really key. Now, gaining consent is normally managed by your privacy policy to a degree. Well, that's where you set out how you're going to use this data. Okay. So, and the thing with AI is AI opens up some new areas for new things you can do. Okay. And if you haven't asked for permission to use the data in that way, then you might need to go back and change your privacy policy. Okay. But how you ask, there's different ways for how you can ask. But let's look at some examples here. So when a candidate comes into your process, if you're using a tool that creates the interview transcripts, if there's you do like Zoom or Teams interviews, and on those interview transcripts, imagine with your managers, you're using the transcripts of what your managers are saying in particular to train your managers how to interview better. Well, you probably want to just make your managers aware of that, change your actual privacy policy or your employee policy around how that's been done, make them get their consent. I think that you wouldn't necessarily have to get their explicit consent, but you definitely want to make them aware of it in that sense. And because there are tools out there like, Fireflies. Paul's got his Fireflies note taker on here, so he can have a full transcript of this webinar, which is great. And it will summarize it and be really useful for him. But if this was an interview, then me as a candidate, you'd want to ask me, and you definitely want to make your managers aware that you are storing that transcript. And for both sides, if you're storing the candidate's details, are you using that for any purpose? If you're using the manager's questions, are you using that for any purpose? And just be explicit and honest. And what you're better off doing is, even if you don't use it for that purpose just yet, but you might want to in the coming future, you might want to at least broaden that in there. So you might say something broad to the candidate to say, we record interview transcripts, we ask for your explicit permission to do that. That would be best practice in my mind. and we use this for training purposes and to help us recruit better and understand better about how we're working it and to make sure we're selected. If you said to make sure we recruit better, then you could use that transcript to go back and reflect on any interview and say, oh, did the person answer that question well? Let's go back and see what they actually said if there was a conversation later on in the process. So you get the idea. Nice and clear about your privacy policy. I actually wrote, I'm going to show you this actually. I actually wrote a link. I've got a LinkedIn newsletter that I write about AI. Not this week, I've just launched a new one, but 2 weeks ago, I do it every fortnight. 2 weeks ago, I did an article where we looked at this and we looked at into privacy policies in particular. And there was case studies of organizations out there saying, oh, this organization uses AI because they're using our product and it's been doing this and that. And I looked into those organizations' case studies, so privacy policies, to see whether they mentioned AI. And they didn't, which in itself is not necessarily, sorry, I'm just struggling to find it. Give me 2 seconds. I will grab this. It's not necessarily a problem. But you don't have, if you're using AI, you don't have to, for candidates or for anything else, you don't have to explain that to candidates. GDPR doesn't require you to do it. There's no legislation that requires you to do it, but it is good practice. So this was the article I looked at here. I wrote and it goes through and it looks at, and I look also about 25 organizations to see whether their privacy policy mentioned AI. So about 25 FTSE 100 organizations, very, very few did. And where they did, they briefly mentioned it in a very subtle sense. So you can sort of see. So HSBC says, we use AI to match you to job vacancies. That's it. I suspect, I don't know as a fact, HSBC is probably using AI in other areas. They might not be, but I suspect they are. So that's an interesting article. If you're interested, I will put it on the chat and you can feel free to read about it. Okay, let's get through this. And gaining consent's really key, particularly for things like automated decision making. So if you're going to have a system that you're brought in that's going to make decisions and tell you as a HR team the people you want to bring through to internal promotions or recommend to certain projects or schemes, then that is something you would definitely need under GDPR legislation your staff to explicitly opt into. And they have the option of opting out of that as well. And then you have to use a manual process, which could be painful. Applicant screening and shortlisting, that's absolutely clear. Let me show you, I've got an example here from one of our customers. This is Heron Foods. They actually ask quite a lot of, so this is what you see, a typical thing, like vacancy specific questions. So this role here requires you to at least have been supervising a team or be a key holder, holding keys to the premises. So that question, yes or no, however I answer it, is probably going to be an auto reject question. But for it to be an auto reject question, and this is not using AI, by the way, this is just the system. So any system, whether it's AI or any system, if it's making an automated decision without human involvement in it to stop someone getting a job potentially, or to stop someone getting a promotion, you need to get the explicit permission, which is what we're doing there. I agree. And that's how virtually every ATS system manages it, just with a simple checkbox. So you can sort of see how that works. AI-based salary review. So you can sort of see all these things would be key that people would have to opt into. Okay. And then you also want to think about controlling access to data. I'm going to show you this as live. We're going to go live in one second now. And I'll show you an example. This tool came out in March, Manus. You might have heard about it. It does agent mode, which I'm also going to show you later on ChatGPT, which will be fun. But what it was very impressive was it was more advanced in some ways than ChatGPT. It would actually open a browser and complete tasks for you, like book a holiday and things like this. So it's quite advanced. But the concern, obviously, for a lot of people was it's obviously a Chinese-based solution. So they're worried about data privacy, and they're worried about their staff, which is what I'm going to show you now as an example. Their staff just using their own AI, because that's got to be a concern for you. I don't see this as a zero-sum decision. It's not like, oh, we use AI or we don't use AI. If you don't use AI and don't offer AI tools to your staff, then two things I think would likely happen. One is your organization wouldn't be as efficient as your competition. And it might just be you decide to go slower. Well, you'll be losing a competitive advantage in my mind. But the other thing that happens is many of your staff are actually starting to use ChatGPT and other tools like this. So if they're not given tools to make them more productive, but they're under pressure, or they're just a little bit not that ethical and thinking, I work from home on a Friday, I'm gonna screen all these CVs. Maybe I can just let the AI screen them and I can walk the dog, come back when it's all done. So let's have a look at that now. Let's have a look at how we can use AI to screen CVs. So I'm just going to use ChatGPT. So let's bring up ChatGPT here. Don't know how well it's going to do this, by the way. So new chat. I've got a bunch of CVs. So now the idea being is, and one of the nice things about our ATS is pure luck, not luck, but because of GDPR, we built in features that customers can turn on to stop managers downloading CVs or emailing CVs off the system. The reason being, if all the CVs are in one place, it's easier to be compliant with GDPR. But that actually probably helps with this rogue AI problem as well, because if you can just go and grab a load of CVs, which I've got a load of dummy CVs, you'll be relieved to hear I'm going to show you here. Dummy CVs, here we go. CVs for the marketing role, head of HR. I don't know how many I realistically can send up here. I'm just going to send up 10. But even if I was doing 10 at a time, upload those 10 CVs. I've got a dummy role here. Let me find it. Head of HR. Doesn't need to be a dummy role. I could match them to any given role. Okay. You may only upload 10 files at any time. Okay. That, by the way, will change. Then, all these limitations you see, they're going to be getting better and better at that process. So let me just do that. Upload 6 or 7. Okay. Can you match these or honestly rate these applicants against this job? I can't type very well today, but we're not going to worry too much about that because ChatGPT will solve that for me. I do know how to spell against. There's an extra A in there. Right, okay, so these are all fake candidate CVs. There's about, 9 or so. It will do its work and it will rate them, give me a little summary. I can talk to it. But if these are real candidates, which they're not, I don't have their permission to do this. I don't have their permission to upload the data to ChatGPT. Luckily, I'm using ChatGPT in a way, if you can read down the bottom, because we're using our own workspace, we've got a paid for version. It says, so hireful limited workspace does not send up data to train its models with OpenAI. So at least it's not doing that. It looks like it's struggling. I'm going to say try again. Let's see if it catches on and reading the documents. That's a good start. Okay. Now I'm almost begging it to do the work. It's yeah, okay. Let's see if it actually cracks on now and does the work. We might have to come back to it and see how it gets on. Right, no, it's not playing ball at all with us. So that's not very nice, is it? Let me just quickly try Claude and whether Claude will do them. Claude's just an alternative tool. I like Claude for various bunch of tasks. So let's just start a new conversation with Claude, upload some files. I'm not sure what their file limitation is. Upload a file. Can you rate these against this job? Okay, let's see if Claude does better. Yeah, here it goes. It's working through. So we've got 8 applicants. And it tells you what it's doing. I can't see the page loaded. Let me just try and search for it. Right. Well, I can just cut and paste the job in if it needs to know it. Right, it's just rating them now generally against the phrase head of HR. Now, obviously, it couldn't see the job advert, which is a problem. I can just say, here is the job advert. Just grab all the text from the page, it'd be massive. Hold on. Yeah, it is actually massive, but fine. It's included all the Google Translate stuff off the bottom, which you don't really need. Right, I'm cookies, right. So let me submit that. Come on. Anyway, you get the idea. I'm probably going to give up on this. It's not been too professional, not been too useful. I'm not trying to, I'm going to show you some wonderful AI stuff later. I'm not trying to show you how good this is. I'm trying to show you the concept. And even if it's not brilliant at doing this now, don't think it won't be much, much better in 3 to 6 months. And it will be able to take, and if there isn't a tool that can take, if ChatGPT can't take 10 files, there'll be another tool along where you'll be able to upload 50 files and you'll be able to just push it in, go walk the dog, come back, and it tells you the people that it would recommend you hiring. But I've only given it basic instructions like how do I rate this candidate, or rate these applicants. I haven't told it what criteria to use. I've given it the whole job spec potentially here now. I haven't told it what's the most important aspects of that job spec. There could be like 18 essential requirements. It doesn't know which are the important ones. So I'm not saying it can't do a good job like a human can. I'm saying it's potentially full with this task is full of problems. Okay. How we've done it, just show you briefly how it sort of should be done, is we've got a head of HR manager here, and we ask our recruiters, so the individual humans putting the job on, to state up to 3 questions about what's key for the role. And then from there, if I go back to the job, all the applicants get rated against that. So we're not doing automated decision making here. We're just assisting the recruiters by showing the AI score. So these people are rated 0. These are all dummy candidates, by the way. I need to highlight that. So this person here, Marcus, is rated 53. So we click into it. We can see he's got experience in the senior HR role, but not within a software company. He holds CIPD level 5, and he's not really got experience of working on a HRIS implementation, which are the key things. So we can sort of see how we've given it set instructions of what to think about and told it, and it answers those 3 questions. It's not saying this is the best person. It's just guiding us with that. So there's just examples of CV screening. And I think there's a problem with, if you don't give your staff AI tools, they can go rogue. There's some interesting articles around that where law firms have shown, there's BBC News articles where law firms have been shown where they've watched the browser's history of all their staff on their network, and they can see more and more of their staff going to ChatGPT, and also they were going to DeepSeek and other Chinese tools as well to use their models as well. So because they were free, so when they hit the limits on ChatGPT, they were doing that. So people will look for help. Will look for shortcuts, I guess is the best phrase as well, and look to be super efficient. Yeah. So that's something you need to be mindful of. And I think the solution is good security, good training, and ultimately providing them good tools where they can do these jobs efficiently. Okay. So where is AI being used in HR departments? Obviously the ATS, drafting adverts, interview questions, scheduling interviews, chatbots, screening, HR systems, definitely around performance management. There's a lot around L&D, around there's a lot of excitement around, individual personalized training programs. You learn the way you like to learn. Employee retention, basically any task that can be using a lot of data analysis to sort of help you, guide you, to say, look, we've looked at all the data, everything you fed me, and here's some assistance. So hopefully then the humans are stepping in with that data analysis piece done to make those decisions, to sort of interpret the data, to work out what is the data you can ignore, what is the data you want to pay attention to. But one of the best things I can suggest for you guys who are AI curious, oh, okay. So some people saying it's a ChatGPT problem. Sorry, I didn't see that on the thing. Thank you for letting me know. That's good. It would have been useful to know that going into today's session. Actually, that is going to create me a bit of a problem, but one I will get around. But thank you for letting me know that, Emma and Lana, if I'm saying your name right. So one of the things I'm going to suggest is one of the easiest things you can do, and you can do this when you roll out to your staff. So when you roll out to your staff, once you choose your AI tools and you put a policy in place and say, this is how we want you to use it, once that's in place, you might say ChatGPT is our go-to system. It might be Google, Gemini, whatever it is, Microsoft Copilot. You then say, right, stop Googling. You can Google, you're allowed to Google, but when the first instinct comes up is I want to find out some information about something, don't turn to Google for the answers, start using AI. Yeah, or use Google's AI mode, which I'm going to show you as well. Okay, so that would be a great tip. The more you can just go there and test it out and ask questions and see its limits and work out a better way of asking that question, the better you're going to become. No part of this webinar was built using Google. Okay, good. Yeah, and then I also think another good practice here is learning. So sign up for an AI HR newsletter. It will help you to understand all the terminology. It will show you what's going on within your industry, what people are excited by, what their expectations are, what they think is actually probably overhyped. Things like this is really important. Yeah, and that alone will help you engage in these conversations because your terminology and your confidence will improve, and you won't feel like you're an outsider. You won't feel like you're sat in a meeting and you have to be quiet. You'll be able to ask sensible questions. And I would also add, if someone's more of an AI expert than you, that does not mean that, and if they explain something and you don't understand it, that's their problem. It's not your problem. There's a concept around AI explainability. So when you use AI within the HR department or with your candidates, you and your staff need to be able to explain to your employees and your candidates how the AI works. If you're using it to help you with internal mobility, you need to be able to explain in simple, explainable terms. You can't just say the algorithm. So the same applies with your, more technical or more AI advanced colleagues. They need to be able to explain things to you in a way that is easy to understand. Yeah. So that's something that you can, ask of them, and feel free to ask that question. You have this concept in ChatGPT, people say, explain it to me like I'm a 12-year-old. And that's a great question for ChatGPT. You get a lot of stuff that's really helpful when it explains at that level if it's a new area for you. But you may not ask that question in a meeting, or you may, but it's definitely something you should have an expectation of. Don't feel like you can't ask those questions. Okay. So I also wanted to throw out which AI newsletter to choose. So I just wanted to show you a couple of other things here around this. So if I bring back, well, I'm not going to bring back ChatGPT now. So I might say here, like I'm just going to, into Google, you would say AI HR newsletter. Yeah. So you might go UK because you want a UK focused one. And maybe it will show you something. Yeah. Once you get past the sponsored links, it gives you HR magazine, which isn't a newsletter. It's not what you're asking for. Also, over here, this is very new, July it landed in, AI mode. Similar to ChatGPT. I don't think it's as good as ChatGPT in my mind, but it's a more of a conversational thing now, yeah? Now, with this, you can change up your question, and actually what we've seen, pretty obvious though, really, the actual average size search in Google is 3 to 4 words. In ChatGPT, it's 7 to 8. And actually, there are plenty of examples of much longer research where it's much longer. So you can say, hi, I'm trying to sign up to maybe 1, maybe 2 HR newsletters that focus on AI. I'm based in the UK, so ideally stuff that's in the UK. And I'm also a bit of a newcomer to this, so I don't want anything too technical. It should be really written for HR professionals. Okay, so that's, by the way, that's how I prompt AI all the time. I use voice. I give it a much more detailed description. It's a bit waffly, as you can see. That's how I talk. And I throw it in there, and hopefully I get a better response coming out of it than I would. Okay. So people management, it reckons personnel today, and so you get a few ideas. Okay. How about LinkedIn newsletters? Are you able to access them or show me examples of LinkedIn HR newsletters around AI? And you can ask and away you go. But yeah, I just wanted to show you this as sort of, better ways to search. You can see how many sites it's looking at. Obviously, we can do this with ChatGPT as well. And maybe you can see links here now to various, yeah, okay. AI in HR by hacking HR. Yeah, you get various things here. Okay, and we could go deeper on this. One of the things you could do, but I won't be able to do it this morning, we've done it in previous sessions. You can come to ChatGPT and you could actually use, this would be another little best practice tip I would recommend. If the plus button come up, obviously it's completely defunct. Oh, here it is. Go away. So if the plus button comes up, you can actually choose deep research. And that means it will go away and spend maybe 10, 20 minutes. So you can say, I want you to do a deep dive into this subject, look at all the newsletters, but find me this and then produce me a mini report that's summarized into a table, blah, 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 blah. And it will go away and do that. If you haven't used deep research before, even on a free account, you can use deep research, then I would recommend it. And the good news is Emma's our resident system admin for ChatGPT. She tells us ChatGPT is back up and running again. So I will be coming back to that later. Okay, so let's get into the reality. I also wanted to mention I offer a free 1 hour AI audit. So basically to discuss anything. Now, the reason I do that, there's two reasons I do that. One is, there's 40 people on this session. 40 people are not going to come back to me over lunchtime today to say, Adrian, can you sign me up for my 1 hour audit? If they did, I would never offer this again for obvious reasons. I have a day job to do. The second reason I do it is part of my day job is understanding HR departments, recruitment teams, and how they're approaching this subject. So I actually, even though I'm probably giving out most of the ideas and answering most of the questions, I gain a lot from it myself. So if you want to reach out, open conversation, then just reach out to me. It's just adrian@hireful.co.uk, or you can message me on LinkedIn. Now time for survey number 2. If I can find my little survey tool here, and I want to find out, he says, I can't remember what I was going to find out, but here we go. Yeah, I want to find out what you're interested in automating. What part of your, obviously mostly we're talking about automating with AI, but what area of HR interests you most around automating? And I'm going to show you a few tips and tricks, but I have definitely waffled at the start, so I'm a little bit worried about the time on this. Okay, I'm going to give 5 more seconds on that because you just got to choose one option. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you for that, guys. End the poll, share the results. So actually answering basic employee questions on HR, that's the number 1. Reporting data analysis, number 2. Screening CVs, yeah. Okay, cool. Right, okay, help with onboarding, not so popular. Okay, cool. Let me show you some other things. So what I wanted to do, I'm going to show you how to build a tool. This is really, I'm doing this internally with hireful managers now to try and equip managers that can just see a task and can go build a tool. We use ChatGPT here to do it. So what you need in order to this process, so I wanted to show you the outline. So whenever you come across this problem, you go, but we've got A, B, and C, so why don't we just put all that together and we can automate this. So what A, B, and C is examples of the output you want. So if you've already produced this before, so what I'm going to do very basically, I'm going to suggest like building a person spec, okay? So if you've got examples of person specs you've built before for the organization, the way you like them laid out, the way it's detailed, then that's a really good start, because if you want to produce that same example level, then feed it, show it what good looks like, essentially. You're going to need some information about this new task. So I need to create a new person spec for head of HR, a new role I've just invented, or head of AI, okay? I'm going to need information about what the head of AI is. Maybe I wrote an advert for that already, for example. So if I have another document for that, great. If not, maybe I need to answer some questions. And you can build these tools so they go down 2 routes to say, like, either the person has a document to upload, or if they don't, ask them these 6 questions, and then we'll be able to get the information we need to then complete the task. And then in addition to that, we might want some clear instructions about the tasks. That could just be things like, make sure you use UK English, not US English. Use numbered lists, not bullet points. Yeah, things like that, just for the things you want. And that might be the bit you're tweaking as you go and as things change over time, perhaps. Okay, and what you get is a draft version of that document. Okay, but you're going to have to then edit that. You might have to edit it, but if not edit, you'll definitely have to proofread it. You don't just get it and go throw it out and go, it's done. But this works really well when you're producing lots and lots of documents for a certain area, and away you go. So let's bring up our friend ChatGPT if Emma is correct and it is working. So this is going to be a little bit, here's one I made earlier. So person spec, this is a custom GPT. So person spec creator. What I've also got here is, I did a little search earlier and found an organization who's put lots of their person specs. Can I just download from here? No, I can't, can I? Who's put lots of their person specs on their website. So we can come along here and we can download this information. Okay, So we download and we will just save it. I should have saved this before, but let's just download it into here. And we'll download a couple of others. Download. Thank you, right. Save. And we'll do one more. Okay. So we've got a few documents there. I'm going to put those documents in the knowledge area, okay? So I'm going to upload files into here. Now, what happens in the knowledge area? Remember earlier I mentioned to you that you can tell the AI not to use the internet to find an answer. Actually use this knowledge area here. So use these documents as your source, as your important source. Now, I need to give it some instructions. I can give it a bit of a description. That would type here. I'm just going to write example description. Literally can't type today. Okay. And you sort of see how that comes through. That's quite important because it can give a nice description. When the user gets it, you can sort of tell them what they need to do. Like type below, do this. You can have a little button saying, let's get started, or I have a document to upload, or I don't. And then we need to put the instructions here. So the instructions piece is really the prompt you would use, but you're sort of storing that in the back end. So that works quite nicely. So what I can do here, and I really am going about as fast as I can to do this, hopefully not too fast, but you can ask, this is called meta prompting. You can ask ChatGPT to give you the prompt, okay, to create the prompt for you. Hi, I'm creating a custom GPT that's going to take person specification documents that I'm going to store to the knowledge-based area, and I need you to create a set of instructions for my custom GPT, which will ask the user a series of questions about the person spec you want it to create, and then it will use the person spec examples in the knowledge area to generate the person spec in the specific style, format, tone of voice, etc. that are there. Alternatively, if the user doesn't want to answer questions, we need to offer an alternative option where they can upload a job advert or other document which will have the information needed about the role that we need the person specification generated for. So that is just me. I've got a voice thing there that literally just drops it all in and explains it. ChatGPT will give me a prompt now. Okay. Now I would, if I'm doing this seriously, not super quick, I would actually read that, make sure that it's spot on, and probably editing it. But obviously today I don't have time, so I'm just going to go through that and just drop this in. Get this out of the way, person spec creator, instructions, boom, done. And I can then create, update. I have to remember to delete this later because our area of GPTs is getting quite busy. They haven't really sorted out nice folders or anything. You do it. View the GPT. Okay, I'm going to just throw it this advert and say, here is my advert. I need person spec. Okay, there we go. Let's get PowerPoint, get rid of that. And it will do the work. I haven't gone through the Beyond Autism person spec to understand whether it's similar to that. It's probably less detail, but my advert didn't have loads of detail in, for example. So yeah, does that make sense? Hopefully you get the idea. I just wanted to, let me remind you what we're talking about here is if you've got the example documents and you can give it the instructions of what you want it to change, yeah, and you can give it the new instructions. So sometimes we're doing this at the moment. It's with features. We've got a new feature comes out, like onboarding. We've got loads of documentation about it, but then we need to write a one-page blog post for the website. Well, we've got blog posts of how we've announced other features. We've got all the information about the feature. We put the two of them together with some instructions, and we get the first draft of the blog post that we then edit. Okay, so that's the sort of harmony that we're looking at, rather than a task that we repeatedly did again and again and again. And I think this little recipe is a very, has good potential for you guys. Okay, let me know if that does resonate. Obviously, I did it a bit fast. There's other sessions I do around custom GPTs as well. So if you want me to send you an example of a custom GPT being built and to go through it slower, I've got like about half an hour session. I can do that. Just reach out to me. Okay, so we've just done that. But what I also wanted to really focus in on is the data set, okay? Because one of those data set is all of your data, particularly in HR. So if you've got like lots of person specs available, well, that makes that process I've just shown you there much easier. If all of your data is organized, you're in a much better position to really leverage the potential of AI. So you need to be thinking about that. Even if you're not marching forward with loads of AI projects, you should be thinking about your data set. So I'm going to show you what we're doing. So we've just got a Google Drive. We've called it hireful data set. And we have got lots of stuff that we're building in here. So like we've got recruitment, we've got example blog posts. Any blog post we've written is stored in there. We've got the webinar transcripts from every single webinar that I've been on. We've got the transcript for it, is all here. So if we want to build a chatbot later on that if you can ask it a question to say, oh, what's a good way of building a custom GPT or anything like that, we probably have some information in those transcripts. I might have wrote a blog post about it and it can go ahead and draw that information out. So that's our data set. So we're building our data set. I can see lots of benefits in HR departments getting organized with their data. Yeah. So you might want to start just storing things in a logical fashion rather than just save and file and start saying, right, we're going to put it in one area because you already save lots of documents, but put it in one area and keep it nice and clean. And if a document gets updated, replace that document so there's the latest version of it there, whether that's your employee handbook or whatever else. You don't want 6 versions of your employee handbook in the folder, for example, because the AI may not appreciate which is the most relevant. Now, once you've got a data set, then this is the beauty, because initially AI was viewed as sort of this infinite interns, and it's a good concept of saying to people, look, because you can scale this up, this is like having an employee. You could have like dozens of employees that can do these tasks for you, and they can do these basic tasks for you. But if you're actually able to get good data together, then actually what you end up with is, an actual army of analysts and can do far more. If you've got your intern there, think about the work experience person who comes along, maybe you've had one in the business. They're more of a pain in the backside when they're first there than they are useful. Maybe on their third week, the week they're leaving, they just about get to be, the input output is in your favor, but that isn't why you offer work experience opportunities, I'm sure. But what we can do with these interns, if you let them follow you into every meeting, then they're learning. And then it's like, well, when you turn to them and say, could you help me with this task? They've got a much better understanding of that, So the joke is here, like, do you record all of your meeting transcripts? We're recording everything from all of our board meetings, all of our leadership meetings, and putting it in. Now, you need to be secure about this. We can't put it in areas where all of our staff could access it for obvious confidentiality reasons, but we're starting to think about that. So we have these things organized and we can go back and say, have we discussed this before? What was the decision? It's all there. It's all useful for us. And also, if we want AI to sort of understand hireful, what our mission and overall objectives are, if it's got all of that information, it's got some wonderful context. Yeah. So that's the type of thing we're talking about, is meeting notes, meeting transcripts, interview transcripts, any piece of data that you can see as relevant, I think has an interest to your data set. You just need to, get it organized. Can you get data from the HR system, data from the ATS? Hopefully, maybe it can be anonymized. Can you get it all in one area? Yeah. What you're also seeing is AI is now connecting up. So ChatGPT and stuff like that, and Claude I showed you earlier, can connect to like our CRM, HubSpot. So it can pull data from HubSpot. So we don't have to even export the data. It can just query HubSpot. So there's lots of interesting areas going on there now. But what I'd suggest is, start documenting your processes, particularly the ones that are more heavy on admin. organize the documents around them. So you've got like good examples of output, things like this, and then put them into folders and start thinking about, right, are we ready to now execute this task? Can we get AI to help us with this? Okay. And I am also then going to show you, whizzing through this a little bit fast. So this is our AI chatbot that we've built. So what we've done is we've given it, now I can give it, what is the bereavement policy? We've given it the hireful employee handbook. It's 124 pages long, but it's got pretty much every policy in there. Now, this is better for our staff even to say like, this is a quick way of answering this question. They can save the link to their phone if they want, and they can just get access to that. And we can, any change to the handbook, we just replace the document in the data set, and we're working off the latest information. So we have a lot of questions coming through. The good news is this idea that your staff could just use a chatbot for basic HR questions is very relevant, because a lot of questions coming through at the start are pretty basic. And the good news is you've got your handbook organized and all that information is there, where sometimes when we look at chatbots, the information is held in managers' heads. That's more work to get it out of there and to get it into a written format. But with a policy thing, I can ask about, can I download WhatsApp to my PC? You know, I think it also has our IT and cybersecurity policies and things like this. So it's got all the basic policies. Yeah, so you sort of get an idea. Okay, you get the idea. So all you've got to do is feed it the data set. There's complicated things behind that as well. I'll tell you a quick couple of things that we've built. We have this as a product. It's on our website. You can buy it and we sell it to customers. And we've got options for career sites, for job seekers, things like that as well. But one of the things to be mindful of is, this is where ours gets a little more complicated. If people ask around like sexual harassment, bullying, you might not want to just quote the policy. You might just want to say, hold on, we recommend you speak to HR. So I think it says that. If I say, just try again. I am being bullied. Let's see what it says. So it isn't, so like a decision tree. Like if this happens, go here. If this happens, go here. So it isn't just a matter of doing that. So yeah, it's not directing me to the policy around bullying. You know, that'd be, it's actually telling me to contact HR or speak to my manager or someone directly about it. Okay, you get the idea. So that's chatbots. So wrapping up, I'm going to run slightly over, guys. Apologies for this. I definitely spent too long on the first part of this session. HR is no longer about admin. The admin is going to be automated, and that gives you, as a HR professional, greater potential to really think about, the higher value tasks, employee experience, workforce planning, things like this. But also, I think it's fair to say employees will expect more. They're going to have more interesting demands. I think you can probably expect more from your employees around their AI skills moving forward as well. And you can expect more from them in regards to output if you're giving them the tools and the training. But I think we're definitely going to see employees are going to want continuous upskilling. There's almost going to be like a two-speed HR department, perhaps, where the departments that have embraced, or the organizations that have embraced AI, are able to sort of really advance their employees and upskill them and train them and get them onto high value tasks and projects. And the others might be sat doing what they've always done, perhaps at the same speed and with the same process. Yeah. So there's a lot of talk about personalized development. And there's also going to be a lot of help needed and support needed for people who just can feel overwhelmed by AI and overwhelmed by the rate of change. I think that's fair to say. There's going to be more hiring, but not how you currently do it. I think recruitment's going to be much more rapid. Applicants will be screened by AI and get personalized feedback within maybe a couple of minutes. Like, you look a really good fit, you're in the top 10% of applicants that apply for this role. Can I ask you a few questions on the AI assistant? And if the questions go well, 3 or 4 questions, I'll get you scheduled in with a human recruiter. That's the expectation that'll be happening in, let's say, next year. Okay. And that same chatbot could answer lots and lots of other questions, but say, well, hold on first, can I ask you about X and Y, Z? And they'll understand it's a chatbot. They can ask questions. And they could spend an hour asking questions to the chatbot. It wouldn't matter. The chatbot's there to support them. Yeah, chatbots love answering questions. That's what they're built for. And then I think a new employee-employer relationship, more flexible working, less focus on, in my mind, less focus on being in the office, more focus on outputs. If everything's better able to be measured, then you can focus on just get the work done. We don't necessarily care, which I think also leans into what we expect: more freelance, more gig work, more people saying, I can achieve this work. Me and my AI agents can deploy a learning and development program for you, for the whole team, personalize it, because maybe you've got the tools and you've got the agents behind you all set up, ready to go and have those conversations, and all that work is largely automated with your oversight. But then I also think there's probably some new legislations. Everyone needs to earn money, needs to benefit from having a purpose, needs to stay employed. So I think there's definitely legislation in this area because there's too much going on for it not to be legislated. I actually personally feel, a bit of an out there, I actually feel this will be the #1 topic for the next election. I genuinely feel like AI will be the #1 topic because it will just start hitting home. It's already affecting some jobs, some junior jobs, and people will see what's coming, and I think they'll want to know more about it. Whereas last election, it was hardly mentioned. So things that could be factors, there could be regulations about human in the loop. So you can't complete a task without a human signing this off. And balancing automation versus job preservation, even perhaps, could be that, large organizations, I don't know, but you have to offer the ability for people to go to a 4-day working week and get paid for 5, which will mean maybe preserves more jobs or things like that. Who knows? Cleverer people than me are thinking about that, but definitely going to be big mandates to reinvest in reskilling workers, because jobs will go, but then new jobs and new opportunities will also emerge and appear as well. Okay, whizzed through that. So I'll go to the questions. So if you've got any questions, guys, fire them up. I appreciate we've just gone over 11 o'clock. So what I want you to do, I think this is quite key to takeaways from today. Set a personal goal to become more AI literate. Some of you, I'm getting the sense on the chat, are definitely there already. But set yourself like sub goals to what you want that knowledge to be, what you want to be able to do. Stop Googling. Well, you can still Google, but try not to Google as much. Start going. Get ChatGPT or Perplexity on your phone and start using that in your personal life as well, and just asking it questions, how to do this, how to do that, and you'll start to get more and more comfortable with it. Yeah. Start planning your employee AI usage policy. We have a template which I will share as well. Got it on my notepad. So this we have a template document which I would recommend. I shared this yesterday, and it's just got what you should be thinking around. There's the chat over here. So feel free to download that document. The template document is just to showcase to you that here's the types of policies you'd be thinking of. You would take that to your lawyer, your legal team. It's got lots of comments on it as well, so you can sort of read why I've put that there, why I've thought about that, what that would be in practical terms, just to make sure that you're aware of the issues and you can confidently have those conversations. Because, for example, there's no point having a lawyer write that for you. You need to be involved in that conversation to make sure it's balanced in the right way and you understand it fully, and you understand, make sure they haven't gone too far in a certain area or not far enough. So I view that as a very much two-way conversation between HR, or senior leadership, and the legal experts. Right, final questions, 11:03. I can't believe I waffled on so much at the start, so apologies for that, guys. We've got through it. A few people saying, I love the HR chatbot. I can see that saving some real time. So cool. Feel free to reach out to us, Mary, if you want to look into our chatbot, or you can obviously build your own as well. I don't know if there's any other questions coming through. What I might do for the people who are still on the session, I might just quickly showcase that document. That wasn't do it quickly. If you're leaving the webinar, obviously rate it. These are the webinars we've got coming up. Next week is a big one. We've got neurodivergent employees. Beyond the policy, what neurodivergent employees need to thrive. So that's not with me. I will be the presenter, but we have a guest expert, Sarah Tansil, who's an expert in neurodiversity. Highly recommend that webinar. So feel free to check that out. There's lots of other ones there as well. But I wanted to show you this document, so I might as well just quickly show you this document for people who are hanging around. This is the employee AI usage policy. which we've got a webinar on in September. We're covering this off in September. So you can sort of see how it works through, what the key parts are, but there are also various questions that I've added to it as well. So you can see comments and stuff added to it. So there you go. So like it talks about IT departments and a list of departments, a list of IT tools you might want to put on here and other things. So yeah, information. So you can see various, it's a simple template, not a bad place to start, and it gives you the things you might want to be thinking about as well. So I'll leave it there. Thank you for your time this morning, guys. Sorry once again that I've overran, and good luck with your AI. It really was a fun process. So yeah, good luck, and we'll go from there. All right, thanks, guys. Bye.